Hello, it's Dr. Daystorms, and I wanted to do an example step by step in case you didn't take notes in class whenever I did the example of the mitochondrial DNA pedigree chart, or in case you were absent, to give you another time in order to try to do this assignment. So first, you're going to do what is your maternal mitochondrial pedigree chart, and to review, this is the symbol for male, because it's very important that you indicate the gender of each person, and this is a symbol for female. Now, if you were typing this out, I know some of you typed it out in Word, then it's fine if you put M and F, but make sure that you just make it obvious, like which is male and which is female. Alright, so I'm going to start off, and my maternal family line is huge, and I'm going to just simplify it some in order to give an example, and I'm only going to include my living biological siblings. Okay, so first off, you want to start with yourself. So here is me, and you don't have to include names if you don't want to. And I have one living biological brother. And of course, we came from my mom. So all of us should have it where there's our mother. Okay? Now, my mom has a huge family. She has 2 older sisters, and each of them are married and have children and grandchildren for that matter. And then there's my Aunt Cindy. Who married and has children and grandchildren. Juanita, Charlotte, my Uncle Paul, and then my last aunt, Tracy. Like I said, all of my aunts and uncles are married and have children, if not grandchildren already. Okay, and normally I would have actually put my mom down at the same level as them, but I just ran out of room. Okay, so next we have my grandmother. Of course, she is the parent of all of these children biologically. And I only require that you go up to your grandma. You could do, if you know your great-grandmother and how many brothers and sisters your grandmother have and everything like that, then that's great. Now, if I was doing this for real, I would actually go through and write down the fact that my Aunt Glenda here, she has 4 biological daughters, and each one of them would have additional children. And some of them even have grandchildren. And then my aunt Gail has 2 children, and each of them have children as well. But for clarity's sake, I'm not going to go through and do each person, just because there's just not enough room. But I wanted to just show you an example of a couple of these. So, for example, my Uncle Paulie has 2 children, a girl and a boy. And this aunt has 5 children. Okay? Boy, girl, girl, boy, boy. This aunt has 2. Both of them are male. And, like I said, there'd be even more. Okay. If I put down all the siblings for all of my cousins down there, because when my grandmother died, for example, she passed away recently, there were, I think, total number of grandchildren and great-grandchildren, there's around 80-some-odd of us, so there's a huge family. Okay, now we're going to talk about mitochondrial DNA, and I said to circle yourself. And now you need to circle everyone who would share the same mitochondrial DNA as you would. Okay? This is passed down through the mother. Only the mothers pass down the mitochondrial DNA. So I'm going to have the same mitochondrial DNA as my mother. But she passes that mitochondrial DNA down to both of her children. Okay? And of course, she got it from her mother, my grandmother. My grandmother actually, I'm going to change colors just so that way it becomes a little easier to see. My grandmother actually passes it on to all of her children. Okay, so all 8 of her kids would have the same mitochondrial DNA, whether they are male or female. Now, I'm going to go back to the original color, all of the female children, so for example here, with this aunt, she would pass it down to her children as well. Likewise, this aunt also passes the mitochondrial DNA down to all 5 of her children. This aunt would to her 3 kids, I think it was. This aunt would to all of her children. This aunt and this aunt. All of them would pass it down to their children, both male and female. However, please note, let me change the color. I do not share the mitochondrial DNA with my uncle's kids because they get their mitochondrial DNA from their mother. And I'm not genetically related to their mother. I'm genetically related to their father. So, hopefully this has helped give an example. This is my mitochondrial pedigree chart. Let's do another example for someone else. So in this example, we need to find out everyone. This was our suspect, the one that I just circled in that color. Now let's figure out everyone in this lineage who would share, I'm going to use this color, who would share the same mitochondrial DNA. Well, he got his mitochondrial DNA from his mother, who got it from her mother. So his mother, right here, would also pass it off to both siblings, male and female. Likewise, if we go back up to Grandma, Grandma passed off her mitochondrial DNA not only to our suspect's mother, but also to his uncle and both of his aunts. Now, let's just focus here on this uncle. This uncle, let's say he married and he has 2 children, both of them are female. However, neither one of his kids will have the same mitochondrial DNA because they got their mitochondrial DNA from their mother, not their father. However, if we look at this aunt, she's going to pass off the mitochondrial DNA to both children. Her daughter will pass it off to her son, or the original aunt's grandson. But notice, this child will not have the mitochondrial DNA because he would get it from his mother and not the father. Now, let's focus on this aunt. This aunt would pass the DNA off to her son. However, neither of his children will have it because he's male, so he cannot pass off mitochondrial DNA. So in this instance, we're going to actually have, besides our suspect, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 other individuals that would have the mitochondrial DNA. Hopefully this will help you in writing out your own mitochondrial pedigree chart and also to reinforce this idea that the mitochondrial DNA is only passed off through the women and not through fathers. Thank you, and I'll see you in class.